All right. Hey, what sounds better to you? Got some frozen yogurt for sale, 80% fat free. Or I got some frozen yogurt for you, 20% fat. Tough choice, right? Tough choice. Or how about this? We got some ground beef for you, 95% fat free or 5% fat. Or here's one more for you. This is a really good one. Hey, doc, about this surgery, what are my chances of survival? Well, here's the good news. You got a 90% survival rate. The bad news, there's a 10% chance that you're going to die. So that's framing effect. And if you're interested in hearing more, my name is Mr. E. This is MysterE's Mysteries, and we are here to tell you all things about the mysteries behind psychology. So, framing effect. Yeah, this one is totally fascinating. We get nailed on this one all the time. So, framing effect, it's based off of this concept where, however things are worded, that's going to impact our decision. And it can be worded in the exact same way. Okay, with the exact same facts in a totally different way and can move us big time. My favorite psychologist, one of my top 3 favorite psychologists of all time, Daniel Kahneman, who recently passed away in the end of March, came up with a couple concepts that we're going to talk about today. The first one that I talked about is framing effect. And the framing effect is what marketing and advertisers do all the time. And what they do is they turn their product into what would be most desirable for us. So I gave the example of, 85, 90% fat free. It's not talking about 10 or 15% fat. And in fact, doctors, they'll do the same thing. When they're framing things, they will talk about a 90% survival rate, not a 10% chance that you're going to kick the bucket. I mean, they're not going to talk about that way to you. And it does really impact our decisions in the long run. And in fact, another great example of that is in the courtroom. And I first noticed this during the OJ trial. Some of you are old enough to remember the OJ trial. Some of you are not. But the OJ trial it was incredibly fascinating to me as a young psychology major and graduate. I was watching these, and the first thing I noticed is that the defense team kept calling him OJ or Juice, right? And I'm like, okay, wow, he's OJ, right? But then I listened to Marcia Clark and the prosecution. They never called him OJ. They never called him a nickname. It was always the defendant or Mr. Simpson. And I was like, God, that is so amazing, because what they're doing is they're framing him. The defense is framing him as this cult sports hero, this actor of the famous Naked Gun movies and all this stuff. I mean, this is Juice, right? And Marcia Clark, the prosecution, is saying, no, this is just simply Mr. Simpson, right? This is Mr. Simpson. This is another person that is on trial for murder. And I just found that so incredibly fascinating. And that's the first time that I really bore witness to it in the courtroom. Daniel Kahneman came up with this, I think it was in 1980, where he started to talk about the framing effect. But that would be, those are a few more examples of the framing effect. I have one more example, and this one is just kind of a piece for you to kind of look up on your own. But in 2001, everybody knows about the terrorist attack, September 11th, 2001. We had the terrorist attack. What many of us don't know is 6 weeks later, Congress passed a bill called the Patriot Act. And if you were to vote against the Patriot Act, you would be considered unpatriotic. But all I want you to do is, I'm not going to, because I don't want you to know my political affiliation or anything like that. What I want you to do is just check out what the Patriot Act is all about, and what the government does with the Patriot Act. But it was framed in a way that it was really said that it was going to be used to fight terrorism, to catch terrorism before terrorism hit our soil or, someplace else in the world. And that's how it was framed. But just go ahead and check out the historical perspective on the Patriot Act. It's super interesting. One politician, one senator stood alone in going against the Patriot Act. His name was Russ Feingold, from the state of Wisconsin. And let's just say his political career pretty much ended there, because he was the sole senator. There were a few representatives that voted against it, but he was the sole senator that voted against it. And he was not reelected a couple times after that. So just a little something for you to kind of check out. It's super, super fascinating, super interesting. So the Patriot Act, check it out. The second one is that Kahneman came up with it. This is also a framing situation. It's called anchoring or anchoring bias. And it's how we can create these stats that can impact our ideas and our beliefs. So I'll give you an example. As a school teacher, I give this survey to my students, and I'm going to ask you all listening right now to think about this and just kind of in your mind or shout it out loud what you think the percentage is. So a recent survey was done of high school students, 9th through 12th grade in the United States. And it was a representative of the population of 9th through 12th grade students in the United States. And in this survey, it was discovered that 90% of high school students smoke marijuana at least once a week. So my question to you is this: do you think that number is too high, too low, or just about right? And now go ahead and to yourself say the percentage that you think it is. Okay. So I'll give you that a second to do that. Okay. So now there's a second survey done. And in this survey, it was 9th through 12th graders. It was about marijuana usage. It was 9th through 12th grade students, representative sample of the population of the United States. And the question was raised, how many of you smoke pot once a week? In this survey, they actually found that only 7% of high school students smoke pot once a week. Again, these are both representative samples. They're not skewed. They're not twisted. They're not trying to, right? But in this one, the answer was about 7% of all high school students smoke pot once a week. Okay. Now, my question to you is this: do you think that number is too high, too low, or about the same? Okay. Now, go ahead and think about what percentage you think it is. Now, one way or another, your answers were impacted by my anchors. Your answers should not have changed. Between the 90% and the 7%, your answers should have been the exact same. But because we are so heavily influenced by these numbers that are given to us, that's going to shape our ideas and our beliefs. By the way, the actual number is about 27%. So just if you are interested in knowing, might be a little higher now because it's a little easier to get the stuff. But anyway, it was 27% as of about a year and a half ago. So anyway, so those anchors act our answers. And it is just kind of another example of framing. So those are a couple of our topics today. I hope you found them interesting. I am Mr. E with Mr. E's Mysteries. Please subscribe, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Instagram, you name it. Check us out, Mr. E's Mystery. I'm Mr. E. Thanks again. A shout out to our producer and director, Bear Wade with Creative Unify Agency. Check him out if you are an influencer, if you want to do podcasting, anything like that. He is the Mac Daddy. Check him out. Hope you all have a fantastic day. See ya.